No one expected that in a matter of minutes, the atmosphere would change drastically. No one was prepared for what he was about to say and how everything would feel so different afterward. At first, Jungkook seemed lighthearted. He joked around, read the comments, occasionally chuckling as if trying to keep the atmosphere light. But something felt off. His eyes occasionally looked vacant, like someone contemplating something deeper than casual conversation. And fans began to sense it, a different energy, something inexplicable. Then, without warning, the conversation shifted direction. Jungkook paused, took a deep breath, and stared at the screen as if considering whether he really wanted to say what was on his mind. The silence felt long, even though it was only a few seconds. But in the world of live broadcasting, those seconds felt like an eternity. I don't want to be number two. The words fell out of nowhere, without context, without explanation. But the impact was immediate. Comments paused for a moment, then exploded. Everyone was trying to understand. Number two in what sense? To whom? And why now? Jungkook didn't immediately explain. He smiled faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. Something cracked there. Something he might have been hiding was now starting to surface. I just want to be the only one. The atmosphere shifted completely. Those words weren't just a casual statement. There was emotion behind them, longing, maybe even fear. And when he finally said that name, Taehyung, everything felt even more real. The fans didn't know how to react. Was this a joke? Was this part of something bigger? Or was this an unintentionally honest moment revealed in front of millions of people? Jungkook hesitated after saying it, as if he realized he'd revealed something that should have remained hidden. He chuckled, trying to lighten the mood, but his voice trembled slightly. I was just kidding, maybe. The word, maybe, hung in the air. There was no certainty there. And that's what made it all feel even heavier. Because if it really was just a joke, why did it feel so real? Some fans began to connect his words to previous moments. A lingering gaze, an interaction that felt deeper than mere friendship, and a chemistry that couldn't be ignored. All the pieces suddenly felt like a puzzle coming together. Jungkook fell silent again. He read the comments, but didn't respond to most of them. It was as if he was trying to comprehend what he'd just said. Or maybe he was regretting his honesty. I don't know why I said that. The words came out softly, honest, unfiltered, and that's precisely why they felt so touching. Because for the first time that night, Jungkook didn't seem like a perfect idol. He looked like a real human being grappling with his own feelings. There was something about the word one and only that kept ringing in his ears. It wasn't a word to be taken lightly. It wasn't something uttered without meaning. And the more he thought about it, the harder it became to ignore the possibility that this wasn't just a spontaneous moment. Jungkook tried to change the subject. He talked about something else, trying to return to the original atmosphere.
But the energy had changed.
No matter how hard he tried, something had already been revealed, and it couldn't be taken back. The fans felt it. They knew they had just witnessed something rare. Not just another broadcast, but a moment where someone opened up a piece of their heart, albeit perhaps unintentionally. And beneath it all, there was a lingering question. Was this really just a joke? Or was this the truth that had been hidden behind smiles and laughter? Jungkook finally looked at the camera once more. This time, his gaze was different.
Deeper.
More honest. As if he wanted to say something but chose to hold it back. Forget it. But how could you forget something that felt so real? The broadcast ended shortly afterward. No closure. No further explanation. Just a dark screen and a million thoughts still swirling. That night, it wasn't just Jungkook who couldn't sleep. Fans lay awake too, replaying every word, every expression, trying to find meaning behind it all. And perhaps that was what hurt the most. Not what he said, but what he didn't say. Because sometimes the truth doesn't come in the form of clear answers. Sometimes it comes in small pieces that can only be felt, not explained. And that night, Jungkook may have said more than he realized. Hours after the broadcast ended, clips of the video began to circulate everywhere. Every second was analyzed, every pause magnified, every tone of voice dissected as if it held a hidden message. And the more people watched it, the more it became clear that this wasn't just a moment to be forgotten. Some said it was simply emotional exhaustion. Others believed it was a form of honesty that finally escaped his control. But among all the theories that emerged, one thing remained constant. The way Jungkook said those words didn't sound like a coincidence. On the other hand, Taehyung's name began to be mentioned everywhere. Not just because it was mentioned in the broadcast, but because all the old memories were resurfacing. Small moments that had once been taken for granted now felt different. A gaze that lingered longer than necessary, a smile that was too genuine, and a closeness that was hard to explain in simple words. And the more people looked back on it, the stronger the feeling became that maybe this wasn't something new. Maybe this was something that had been there all along, just neatly hidden behind the scenes. Jungkook himself offered no clarification. No additional statement, no explanation in subsequent broadcasts. The silence only made it all the more profound, because sometimes silence can say more than words. Some fans began to worry, not because of what he said, but because of how he looked afterward. There was a sense that he might have revealed something too personal, something even he wasn't ready to face publicly. But others saw it differently. That perhaps, for a moment, Jungkook had stopped being the person he always guarded and was himself. No filters, no boundaries, just feelings flowing freely. And that's precisely where his power lies. Because in a world full of scripts and controls, such moments of honesty feel rare, fragile, but real, confusing, but also touching. That night may be over, but its traces remain. Not just on the videotape, but in the hearts of those who witnessed it. Because some words, when spoken with genuine feeling, never truly disappear. The following days felt different, as if something had shifted subtly but surely. Every appearance of Jungkook, no matter how small, immediately became a focus of attention. People were no longer just watching what he did, but also trying to read what he was feeling. On one occasion, he seemed quieter than usual. His smile was still there, but not as bright as before. And to those who paid close attention, there was a shadow of an emotion that was hard to describe, like someone who was keeping things inside. Taehyung's name came up again, not because of any new statement, but because of the silence itself. There was no clarification, no denial. And precisely because of that, the room for interpretation was wide open. Everyone wondered, were those feelings still there? Or had they deepened? Some fans began to realize that their relationship had always had layers that weren't fully visible. There was warmth, there was closeness, but there was also something more complex, something perhaps never meant for the outside world to understand. Jungkook, on the other hand, seemed to be trying to return to his routine. He performed, sang, smiled for the cameras. But the shadow of that night lingered, like an echo that wouldn't quite fade away. His every move now held added meaning in the eyes of those watching. And perhaps most painful was the possibility that he would never explain it all. That those words would remain a mystery, caught between honesty and doubt, never truly answered. But that's precisely where this story lives. In the uncertainty. In the empty space filled with unspoken feelings. Because not everything needs to be explained to be felt. Some chose to believe it was just a fleeting moment, but others felt it was a small piece of something much larger, something perhaps only those who experienced it could understand. And amidst it all, one thing remained clear. That night wasn't the end of the story. Perhaps it was the beginning of something new, something yet to be fully revealed, but enough to make everyone stop and truly feel. As time passed, public attention may have shifted to other things, but for some, that moment lingered, like a small, invisible wound, but occasionally felt when touched by a memory. Every time that video clip resurfaced, the same feelings returned: confusion, emotion, and unanswered curiosity. Jungkook slowly became more cautious. His speech became more measured, his smile more restrained. It was as if he was learning from that moment, trying to ensure no more unfiltered words came out. But that change actually made many more convinced that that night did mean something. On the other hand, his interactions with Taehyung, no matter how small, immediately became the center of attention. Brief glances, small smiles, even the distance between them was analyzed. And every little detail felt like a clue trying to be understood, though never completely clear. There was a moment where they were seen together in front of the camera. There were no suspicious words, no exaggerated gestures. But precisely because of its simplicity, it felt powerful. It was like a silent conversation that only the two of them understood. Fans were torn between curiosity and protection. On the one hand, they wanted answers. But on the other, they also realized that not all feelings need to be explained publicly, that perhaps some things should remain private. Jungkook himself seemed increasingly immersed in his own world, not in the sense of distancing himself, but more like someone trying to understand himself, what he felt, why he said it, and what it all meant to him. And perhaps for the first time, people saw a more human side of him. Not a perfect idol, not someone who always knew what to say, but someone who also doubted, made mistakes, and felt too deeply. Time may have passed, and this story may have slowly faded from the spotlight. But for those who truly felt it from the beginning, that moment will always hold a special place, as something that never truly ended. Because in the end, it's not about whether it's true or not. It's not about labels or explanations. It's about one night where someone said something from the heart and changed the way many people saw them forever.